All right, San Antonio Spurs beat the Houston Rockets just the other night, and Şengün had this badass play against Wemby. Let's check it out. I do have it muted, otherwise Adam Silver's gonna do butt stuff to me. If we check it out, this was just the other night. You see up top, Wemby viciously raked Şengün across the nose. If we see the live angle, it looked like Wemby actually hit him from the live angle. If we see right here, let's check it out one more time. I mean, it was just, he doesn't even touch his face at all. And Şengün acts like he got hit by an uppercut. On the live angle, it looked like he actually got hit, so it is a good flop. Doesn't even hit his nose at all, just completely makes no contact. That's a good angle right there. You can really see he made no contact with his face at all. Let's see one more time. I guess Wemby does kind of touch his shoulder on the way down. Do you want to call that a foul? The little shoulder touch. I mean, if the Spurs challenged it, he doesn't touch his face at all. If the Spurs challenged it, the way officiating is going these days, I think they probably would have called Wemby for a foul still because he touched Şengün's shoulder. They probably would have still called him for an offensive foul and tried to say that he hooked. But I mean, up top, he didn't hit him in the face at all. And see it one more time, and Şengün just flops his ass off. Wemby did not touch your foreign face at all, bro. Anyway, no contact. Um, Şengün has become a notorious flopper. He's kind of always been a flopper, but I don't get so much mad at the players for flopping. I'll get more angry at the officials for not officiating the game correctly. It was either before this season, I think it was before last season, to be honest. They were talking about making flops flagrant fouls. We're going to get into these rules right here in a second, but talking about making flops flagrant fouls and for egregious flops, like this one on Şengün, they were talking about calling those flagrant. That way, it kind of discourages players from flopping and gets flopping more out of the game. Um, Şengün does have that flop. I'm not going to hate on Şengün or hate on players for flopping. I'll watch it. I'll call it out like I am in this video, and I'll say that's ugly. That's an ugly way to play basketball, and I think it is, especially when you see a replay like that and you see he didn't make any contact. It is frustrating for me as a Spurs fan, and even if I'm watching two teams that I'm not a fan of, and I saw a play like that, it's just frustrating to see a flopper get rewarded for their flop. With that being said, Jeremy Sohan had a foul later this game, or he had a flop rather. It was an obvious flop. The refs got the call wrong. I forgot the player on Houston, but they got a foul when they should not have gotten a foul at all. So I'm not going to sit here and act like the San Antonio Spurs don't flop. Manu Ginobili's he's probably the guy that kind of brought perimeter flopping into the NBA. There were big men that would flop before Ginobili. There may have been, I can't think of a shooting guard before Ginobili or a point guard that would flop the way Ginobili did. Ginobili, he invented the head snap. When players are dribbling and they get their shoulder bumped, and they hit the head snap, Manu Ginobili invented that move. When he came in, he had the long hair and he's looking crazy. He's running and his hair is swinging back and forth. He used to do the head snap and his fucking hair would swing back. I remember those days. Ginobili, if he didn't invent perimeter flopping, he was a huge influence in bringing the flopping style into the NBA. And I fucking love Ginobili. He's one of my favorite players of all time. So when I say a player's a flopper, it's not me saying, oh, this player's trash, this player sucks at basketball. It's just me saying that player's a flopper. Like if you're a really good shooter, I'm going to say, man, that player's a shooter. If a player's a really good shot blocker, I'm going to say, man, that player's a shot blocker. If a player flops a lot, I'm going to say that player's a flopper. And people act like you're being a hater when you say that, but there are some players in the NBA, they're notorious for flopping, and if a player flops like that flop by Şengün, I'm going to say, hey, that flop was a flop, and I don't think there's anything wrong with calling out a flop, even though some people hate when you call out players for flopping. You'll see the stuff like what SGA does. SGA, people hate to hear it, but probably 95% of the time he actually does get fouled. Then we see the 5-10% of the time where he'll kind of do grifting, foul baiting. SGA will flop from time to time, but people love to just hate on SGA, even when a lot of the time he's just really good at drawing fouls. It's not so much him getting away with a bunch of flops or not getting fouled. It's just you'll see those egregious ones where SGA gets a foul call he wasn't supposed to get, and then we see that online and people say, "Oh, I hate SGA. SGA is a flopper, a foul grifter, this and that." And I don't love SGA, but a lot of what he does is just actually drawing fouls. So that's not so much what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more like this Shengun play and plays like that where there just isn't any contact because there was no contact to Shengun's face on that play, and then he gets rewarded. Again, gets rewarded with the foul call. We'll get into the rules here. This was just from before the season started for flagrant fouls. We know what a flagrant foul is, but just to get into the definition, a flagrant one is unnecessary contact committed by a player against an opponent. So I think we're all pretty familiar with what a flagrant one is. Once we get into flagrant twos, that's when it gets a little weird because I would tell people, hey, we need to start calling these flops. They need to start pointing out when a player flops and calling the flagrant fouls for the flops like they said they were going to do before the season started. If y'all remember, they were saying that, hey, we're going to start calling flagrant fouls on floppers. Shengun should have got called for a flagrant foul on that play. If Mitch Johnson had challenged that play, maybe they do call Shengun for a flop. I personally think they just call Wemby for touching his shoulder and still make it a offensive foul on Wemby personally. But you know what I'll say? Hey, when you start calling out these floppers and giving them flagrant fouls when they flop, and then someone would probably say, "Well, how can we call it a flop or say, hey, that was an exaggerated or you exaggerated that contact. That was obviously a flop." Because there's times when someone's drawing an offensive foul, you hit them not very hard, they fall down on the ground and they exaggerated the contact. I wouldn't call that a flop. What Shengun did, there's no contact on his face. He flopped his ass off. I would call that a flop. Then there's all the gray area in between. So it can be kind of tough to say, hey, that was a flop. That was, exaggerated contact. But just like for a flagrant foul, 2 says unnecessary and excessive contact committed by a player against an opponent. So just like they kind of, because when you're calling a flagrant 2, it's not like letter of the law. There's not exact rules saying what a flagrant 2 is, just like there's not exact rules saying what constitutes a flop. But for the flagrant penalty 2, unnecessary and excessive contact. So just like they're saying here, I'd say unnecessary and excessive exaggeration of contact or unnecessary and excessive faking, flopping, whatever the word is you want to use. Referees can look at a flagrant 2 and say, hey, that was unnecessary, that was excessive. So I think they should be able to look at a player flopping and say, that was unnecessary, that was excessive as well, and then start calling those flagrant fouls. But right here's the good part. Whether the personal foul should stand or be ruled a flagrant 1 or flagrant 2, which results in an ejection or a technical foul. So we already know that, how flagrant 1, flagrant 2s work. And then whether any other players committed unsportsmanlike acts or unnecessary contact immediately prior to and or immediately following the foul. So again, that's kind of just criteria for a flagrant 2. And then here's the part I was talking about that maybe it's happened. I haven't seen it once all season. I've been watching a lot of basketball. So this is the part that I'd like them to enforce more. I thought when you start calling out the floppers, it doesn't ruin the game. The NBA is more exciting to watch than it's ever been. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, there's way too many fucking threes being shot and all these floppers and be like an old head that hasn't watched the NBA in 10 years and just wants to hate on it for no reason. I don't think flopping is a gigantic issue in the NBA, but I feel like that's kind of one thing that officials could work on and be better at calling, and it would make the game, more appealing to watch. But right here, rule 3, whether a flopping violation proximate to the called foul should be assessed or rescinded. Um, since they put this in, I've maybe seen it maybe 2, 3 times where a player actually gets called for a flop. And it's fucking awesome. The ref says, hey, bro, you're flopping, you're fucking faking contact. We have the replay right here, just like the Shengun replay. And then just call him out in front of all the fans. Maybe the player's embarrassed. Maybe they don't give a fuck. They shouldn't give a fuck. But, just make it obvious that, hey, that was a flop. This player tends to flop a lot. Then you get the reputation for being a flopper. And then referees are looking out for you more. And looking out more, just in case you do flop and you kind of get on the referee's radar. Just like people might say that's unfair, but just like if you're a dirty player, if Draymond Green fouls somebody and it's like a flagrant foul, they're going to look at Draymond Green's foul even more than they would look at let's say Al Horford fouls someone. We all know Al Horford is not a dirty player. We all know Draymond Green fucking walks the line. I think Draymond is a dirty player, but you get what I'm saying. Draymond has a reputation of being dirty and committing dirty fouls, so when he fouls, the refs might look at it, a little more focused than if Al Horford fouled. So, if you're a player with a reputation for flopping, I think it's totally fair to look at that player when they flop and, look even closer into the potential flop, just like they would look closer into Draymond Green, Dylan Brooks, whatever other kind of borderline dirty style players you want to name. So again, I don't think it's a humongous problem. It's not ruining the NBA, but that Şengün flop was fucking ugly. I've seen a lot of flops that are fucking ugly. We watch them at home and we can say, hey, that's a flop. I watched one replay and we all know it's a flop. We all know there's no contact. The referees see the replay as well. So, they're seeing it as well. And I feel like it's something the NBA could clean up a little bit and they could get better at. But, with that being said, wouldn't say flopping and 3-point shooting are just out of control in the NBA like a lot of people would say. But I think there's something, Adam Silver, the officials can really focus on, and it would make the product even better to watch, if they could kind of cut down on the flopping. And again, if they start enforcing these flagrant flopping rules, people are just going to stop flopping. They're going to be popping up on a bunch of low light reels, looking like idiots, just flopping around and not getting the foul call. And if the NBA enforces that more strictly over time, we'll just see players flopping even less and less, which would be cool to see. But please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 7 million subscribers. Please let me know what you thought about the Şengün flop. If you think that flopping is kind of out of control in the NBA, because I think it is a problem. It's not ruining the game, but I think officials could keep a closer eye out for it and call more of these flagrant flops out there. But please like and subscribe. We'll see you all next time. Peace.